Welcome to Live Daf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem, welcome back to today's Daf Yomi, which is MOED KATAN Tesvav. We begin on Yidal Dam Beis, the second line from the bottom. We're going to discuss three individuals: an Avel, who's in a state of mourning, a Metzora, and a Menuda, a fellow who was excommunicated, perhaps due to his lack of cooperation with the Bezdin, perhaps because he negated a Talmud Chacham, he was Mevaza Talmud Chacham. In any case, we have three individuals who are somewhat similar. In certain ways, we compare one to the other. They're limited in their various activities. They have to remain separate, of course, each for his own reason. Each one in its own context. The Avel is meant to show kavod hameis. He misses the mace, so he's meant to minimize, self-care, self-grooming, etc. The Menuda is meant to suffer his consequence and keep separate, keep away, learn his lesson. A Metzora, there as well, it's a process of oynesh, of kapara. He keeps separate, he doesn't groom, etc. We're going to see that each one of these individuals has to limit, has to minimize in certain activities. In some ways they're similar, in some ways not. And the Gemara will go through case by case what limitations and restrictions and halachos apply to the Avel, to the Menuda, or to the Metzora. Says the Gemara, Avel osor b'tasperis. An Avel may not cut his hair for the first 30 days. How do we know that? Hashem tells Aaron HaKohen's remaining two sons, after Nadav Avihu were taken from them, he tells Elazar Summer, you don't conduct yourself as an ordinary Avel. You don't let your hair grow. You're Kehanim serving the Mikdash, Roshechem al tifro. Don't allow your hair to grow wild. Mashma, this implies Michlal, the Kuli Alma Osir. Typically, an Avel is meant to let his hair grow. So this is a mocker that an Avel may not trim his hair during the period of Avelus. What about the other two individuals? Menudan, a fellow who was excommunicated. Umetzoyroin, a fellow who was a Metzora. Mahen b'tasperis, what about trimming their hair? Tashma, Rabbi Brisa. Menudan umetzoyroin asurin lesaper lekabes. Even these two individuals must refrain from barbering or laundering their clothing. Brisa continues. Menuda shemes, a fellow died when he was still in a state of nidui. He never went to release himself from that nidui. Bezdin soiklin saroinai. Bezdin will place a stone. It will stone his coffin. Rabbi Yehuda Kessler, he says, look, loishiamidu olav gala avanim. It doesn't mean they pile up a huge pile of stones, kigalei shel achen, like they did when achen was stoned. It doesn't mean to that extent. It just means symbolically. Ela bezdin sholchen o manichen even doila ala roinai. Bezdin sends over a large stone, and they place that one stone on his coffin. This informs everybody, this teaches all a lesson. Look, it's a serious business. When one is nisnada and he doesn't seek to remove that nidui, umeis b'niduya, he dies in that state. Bezdin soiklin saroini, Bezdin indeed somewhat stones his coffin as well. In any case, we learn that a menuda and a metzora are osur in tasperis. They don't cut their hair, just as an Avel. So when it comes to tasperis, all three individuals, Avel, Menuda, and Metzora, are equal and the same. What about the next item? Avel chayev bativas harosh. Avel is meant to wrap his head. So then they used to do that. They used to take some sort of scarf, some sort of beged, like a hood, cover their head and their face up until their past their nose, near their mustache. Atifas harosh, as a sign of mourning. How do we know this? Hashem tells Yecheskel Hanavi, your wife is going to pass away, but you're not going to observe all the halachos of Avelus. Why? This is going to be a simon, like a remez, a precedent to what's going to happen eventually by Klal Yisrael when their Mason will die, and they won't have that opportunity to observe Avelus properly. So he tells him, "V'lo yisata al safam." You won't cover until the mustache, meaning you won't wrap yourself like an oval. You will not observe that aspect of Avelis. We learn from him, Mechlal, apparently, that's typical for an oval. Mechlal de kuli alma mechayvi. Typically, an oval is meant to wrap himself. So that's clear. An oval, yes. What about a menuda? Mahu batifas harosh. A person in a state of nida. Does he do this as well? Amar Rabbi said, Tashma, I'll bring a raya. The answer is yes. We have a Mishnah in Tanis. When they were fasting, as a result of the drought. So the Mishnah says, "Ve'hin mas'atfen," they would wrap themselves, ve'yoshven, and sit kemenudin ukavelim, like a menuda and like an ovel, achi rachmu aleim and Hashemayim, until they elicit rachmanos from Hashem and they're answered. It seems from the Mishnah that a menuda is meant to conduct himself in this manner. Is meant to do atifas harosh. Amali Abaye. How do you bring a raya from that case? Dilma, perhaps you can differentiate between a menuda la shamayim who's shani. In that case, they were distant from Hashem, so to speak. It was a bin adam la malkim situation. Hashem was ignoring their pleas, so to speak. So perhaps that's different. That's shani de chomer. That's more severe than your typical menuda, who was entangled with bezdin. Perhaps that doesn't have the same level of severity, and that doesn't require atifas harosh. So you have no raya from menuda la shamayim from that mission. Okay, that's a question mark. We're not sure. What about Mitzora? Mahu batifas harosh. Does he cover himself? Tashma? Yes, he does. Va'al safam yata, it's a pasuk which teaches us mechlal shechayev batifas harosh. He covers himself until the safam, until the must, until his mouth. Shema Menah, it's a clear raya. So Aval, yes. Mitzora, yes. And Menuda, we're not sure. What about wearing tefillin? Aval Asur, laniach tefillin. He doesn't wear tefillin. How do we know? From that same pasuk by Yecheskel Hanavi. Hashem tells Yecheskel Hanavi, you're not going to conform to the practices of an ordinary Aval. You'll have the adornment on you. Your tefillin will be worn when you will be an Aval. You're not going to observe Dini Avelos. Michlal Dukuliyam Asiri. Apparently, the conventional Avel is also Ba'anochas Tefillin, the first and second days, as we're going to see later on in the Masechta. What about Menuda? Mahu b'tefillin. Take it, we're not sure. What about Mitzora? Mahu b'tefillin. Tashma. Vatzorah, the Rabbis Kohen Gadol, we had this yesterday. Pasuk describes all the practices of a Mitzora, tearing clothing, long hair. The word Vatzorah is an extra word, we already know. We're discussing a Mitzora. It's coming to include a Kohen Gadol who must conform to these halachas. The pasuk continues with the words "Begadav yiu ferumim." We learn from here, "Sheyu mikuroim." He should have torn clothing. The pasuk continues, "V'roishay yipara." His head should be overgrown. Ein periya. The lashon periya means ela gidul seyar, letting his hair grow. Divrei Rabbi Lezer. So that's his opinion. Rabbi Kiva Eimer, he learns differently. V'roishay yipara means instead of long hair, pura means exposed, uncovered, like by a soita, upara es roisha isha. So that's Rabbi Kiva's opinion. Nemra havaya baroish. In the same pasuk we have the lashon havaya pertaining to one's head. V'roishay yiyeh parua. V'nemra havaya bebeged. And in the same pasuk we have the lashon havaya yiyeh pertaining to the beged. Begad of yiyu prumim. We connect the two. We draw a parallel. Ma havaya hamura bebeged. Just like the lashon havaya pertaining to beged is discussing something which is not the person himself, rather on top of the person. Davar shechutz migufoy, it's outside his guf, meaning his begadim. Av havaya ha'amura barosh. Likewise, the discussion regarding his head is davar shechutz migufoy, something outside his body. So rather than discussing his hair, letting his hair grow, no, we're speaking about something that's extra on top of his guf. What is that? My love, atfilin. So the Gemara here interjects. Okay, so apparently Rabbi Kiva is speaking about tefillin. He must not wear tefillin. His head has to be exposed, uncovered, no tefillin. So that would seem to be a riot. That was shaila. Mitzora doesn't have tefillin. Omar papaloi. No, we're not speaking about tefillin. Akumta v'sudra. We're speaking about a cap, ornamental, a scarf. So he has to expose himself. He can't be all dressed up, but perhaps tefillin he'll still wear. Okay, so regarding tefillin, na'aval X, a menuda, we're not sure. And the Mitzora as well. We leave it as a question mark. What about greeting people? Aval asr b'she'el shalom. An aval does not do that. He keeps to himself, subdued, low-key. He mourns the passing of that mace as an expression of kavod for that mace. How do we know this? Hashem tells Yecheskel, when you will experience avelus, he anik doim. Doim means be silent. So, pain yourself with silence. Apparently, that's the way Aval conducts himself, with silence. He doesn't greet people. It's interesting that Taisus points this out. That here we find that Yecheskel would observe some halachas of avelus, as opposed to previously where we said he's not going to wrap himself. He'll wear the tefillin. Unlike your typical aval, this is going to be a sign for what's coming to Klal Yisrael. They will not have the opportunity to have avelus on their mason. And here we find He'anik daim, remain silent like an aval. So Taisus answers, and the Mepharshim explain Taisus' words as follows. Yecheskel wouldn't engage in practices which were obviously avelus related. So he would wear the tefillin instead of not. He would not wrap his head instead of yes. Because this was meant to be a sign for Klal Yisrael that they will not have the opportunity to be avelim when they experience misfortune. But when it comes to remaining silent, he has nothing to say. Well, soon in the Gemara we'll learn about refraining from words of Torah. So Yecheskel had to remain silent. He couldn't learn. He has nothing to say. It's not obvious that he's refraining from greeting people because he's an aval. He's just preoccupied. He's just not learning. He's busy with... So, doing these things, these elements of avelus, wouldn't really contravene, wouldn't send mixed messages. It wasn't going to confuse matters because they weren't things which were obviously aval related, and therefore he had to do them because after all he was an aval. So this provides the makar for our Gemara. That an aval is also b'she'el shalom, just like Yecheskel would not greet people when he was in a state of avelus. What about a menuda? Mahu b'she'el shalom, can he greet people? Amar Rav Yosef, the answer is no. Tashma, who bring a raya from that same Mishnah, where they experienced a drought, they fasted, and they behaved like an avel, like a menuda. So they minimized commerce and business. Ubishelas sholem shebedad mechaver, they would refrain, they would minimize all types of greetings. And the Mishnah continues, like who? Kibnei Adam hanazuf elamakim, like people who are distanced from Hashem. Nazifa literally means rebuked. So apparently, one who is in a state of nazifa, being rebuked and distanced and excommunicated, will not engage in she'el shalom. That's a right that a menuda must not greet people. Abaye, once again, Abaye responds with the same kasha. How could you bring a raya from one who is menuda to heaven, which is more chamer than menuda as a result of the bezdins applying their powers? Dilma menuda l'shamayim shani, maybe that's different to chamer. It's more severe. You can't make a raya from there. What about a mitzvah? Mahu b'she'el shalom. Can he greet people? Pasuk says he's meant to stay separate in solitude. Could he greet a person from afar? Tashma. Pasuk says V'al safam yata. The mitzvah is meant to cover himself, and we learn from V'al safam yata. Taisus says the fact that it says safam instead of safa, a lip. So safam tells you shehiyu sivseisav medubaka zubazu. His lips should be clenched shut, sealed shut. No greeting, no socializing. Shehei kemenuda uke'aval. This is the Brisa. The Brisa continues. Mitzvah is like a menuda and aval. V'asa b'she'el shalom shma mina. Right from here, there's no greeting by a mitzvah. Oh, now the question is, we had a shaila regarding a menuda. We left it unanswered. Right? We had no raya. This Brisa provides a raya. A mitzvah can't greet because he's like a menuda and an aval. Apparently, a menuda has the same halacha. V'nivshet mina lemenuda. Let's bring a raya from here to menuda. Amar of Achabar Pinchas, Mishmeder of Yosef. Take a close look at the wording of the Brisa. Mi katani she'asur. Does the Brisa then say that the Mitzvah cannot greet people? Is he asur like a menuda b'aval? Doesn't say that. That would indicate that a menuda can't be she'el shalom. That's not what the Brisa says. The Brisa says, look, he's going to be like a menuda b'aval. That's number one. Shehei ke menuda ka'aval. Ketani. That's what the Brisa says. The Mitzvah is compared to them. B'milach Renaisa, when it comes to other things, haircuts, etc. And then the Brisa continues. Number 2, V'asur nami b'she'el shalom. Mitzvah also has another restriction, no greeting. But perhaps the Menuda can greet. There's no raya from this Brisa one way or the other. So when it comes to greetings, the Aval does not, Mitzvah does not. The Menuda, we have a question mark. What about learning Torah, which is Mesameach Leiv? Aval is also b'divrei Torah, because he has to be in a state of mourning and avelus to show kavod hameis, like he cares about what happened, and that soothes the mace, who still feels connected to his social circle, to his family, back there on earth. So an aval cannot engage in things that gladden the heart, such as Torah. How do we know this? What's the source? Because getting back to Hashem and Yecheskel, it says, Doim, remain silent, and we learn it means refrain from Torah. What about a Menuda? Mahu b'divrei Torah. Rav Yosef Tashma. Sure, he can learn. Menuda shoyna, he can even teach others. V'shoyna loy, and be taught by others. Niskar, he can do a job, he can do work for other people, as long as they stay out of his 4 amis. V'niskar and loy, and others can work for him. So a Menuda is the first phase of Cherem, not so severe. So therefore he can still interact with others. But once he gets to the state of Muhram, which is 60 days later, so this fellow doesn't bother removing the nida, he could care less, and he carries on and in his non-cooperative state with the Bezdin. So he gets to the next state of Cherem, Muhram. This case is more severe. Lo yishoyna, he can't teach others. V'lo yishoyna loy, others can't teach him. Lo niskar, he can't work for others. V'lo niskar loy, others can't be hired by him. Avol shaynu la'atzmei. But certainly even the muhram could learn privately. Why? Shelo yafsik es limudoi. So he doesn't stop learning. Kiyem chayenu. Torah is our life. You can't stop life. There's a gersa on the bottom. Shelo yafsid. So it doesn't learn. He doesn't forget his learning. So he can still learn and review to keep his learning intact. In any case, it's clear from the Brisa. A fellow in Cherem may learn Torah. The Brisa continues. He can earn a basic livelihood as well. He can make himself a small little grocery to earn a livelihood. Vamarav, what's an example of this small scale business? Zavuni Maya, for instance, setting up a water selling shop, Bipakta, in the valley of the Arvas, where they had a shortage of water, so he can set up a little stand there and sell some water to earn his basic parnos. Shmamina, in any case, it's clear from here that a Menuda or a Mukhra may learn Torah. What about a Mitzvah? Mahu b'talmud Torah, b'divrei Torah, Tashma, or bring a raya from a Brisa, even a Mitzvah may learn Torah. Pasuk says, inform your descendants, tell them about that day way back when, Har Sinai, where you experienced the Matan Torah. And we learn from this pasuk that whenever you learn with your children, it should relate back the experience of Matan Torah. You meant to re-experience Matan Torah. Malahalan, just like way back during Matan Torah, it was experienced be'ema with awe, be'yiro, ubeyiro with fear, ubereses or bezia with trembling and trepidation. It was a koilus of brakim. It was an experience like no other. We experienced the revelation of Hashem when He gave us the Torah, Talmud Torah, all throughout the Doros, every day. B'chol yom kechadashim. It's as though it's being given right now, because ultimately Torah is really that connection to Hashem, and Hashem is learning with you. It's like a fresh Matan Torah on a daily basis. Therefore, you have to prepare yourself accordingly in order to re-experience that same experience. Mikan Amar, we learn from here that your ordinary fellow who is Tameh may learn Torah. Hazavan, Vametzoyroin, Ubayle Nides, those who are engaged with a Nida, Mutar and Likrois, they're allowed to learn. Just because they're a Tameh, they don't lose their Talmud Torah rights. Mutar and Likrois, but Torah, they can learn all parts of Torah. But Torah, Benavim, Beksuvim, Velishnes, Bemedrash, the Brises, Beshas, that's the Gemaras, Ba'alachis, Halachim Mishmesina, Ba'agadis, the Agadis Hashas. But we have an exception. A Balkari. Ubalekari and Asurin, they may not learn Torah until they're Torah. Why? Says Rashi, 2 lines from the bottom. Balekari and Asurin. This is a type of tumah which is uniquely related to frivolity and lightheadedness, and is incompatible with the learning Torah experience, which needs to be be'ema b'yira, to really appreciate and derive proper benefit from Torah. In any case, we learn from here, Shema Mina, that a mitzvah may engage in Torah. So getting back to Talmud Torah, Avil is Asur, a menuda may learn Torah, and likewise a mitzvah. What about laundering? Avil Asur b'tach baisis, he may not launder his clothing. It shouldn't appear like he's engaged in his own grooming and his own affairs, rather than paying attention to the mace. How do we know this? So Yoav, he is sent to the town of Tekoa, and he called a wise woman from there. And he tells her, appear like you're an ovel, and wear clothing of a mourner, dirty clothing, and don't smear oil, and present yourself like Kiisha Zeyamim Rabim Mesabelis. Almeis, like an Isha who's in the midst of a long-term Avelus. Pretty clear from this pasuk that an Avel doesn't freshen his clothing. Menudin Mitzurayin, what about them? Mayim Tachbaisis, what about them laundering their clothing? Toshma, we have a brisa. Menudin Mitzurayin, Asurin, L'Saper, L'Kabis. This is the brisa we had on top of the Amid. That a Menudin Mitzurayin are not meant to groom themselves, not meant to take haircuts or refresh their clothing. Shema Minah, it's a clear right. So all three, the Avel, the Menuda and the Mitzora, are not meant to wash their clothing. What about tearing clothing? Avel Chayiv B'Kriya. What's the source for this halacha? That pasuk by the Bnei Aaron, who suffered a tragedy, and Hashem tells them, you can't tear your clothing. You're not meant to do what an ordinary Avel would do. Right from here, Michlal, this implies the Kuli Alma Mechayvia. Typically, an Avel does tear his clothing. What about a Menuda? Mahu B'Kriya. Teiku. What about a Mitzera? Mahu B'Kriya. Tashma. The God of you frumin. Pasuk says that Mitzera's clothing are meant to be torn apart. Sheyu Mekaran. Shmamina. Clear, right? That Mitzera tears his clothing. What about overturning beds throughout the home? Avel is Chayiv B'Kviyas Hamita. He's meant to turn over his bed. So they used to sit on beds while they ate. They used to sleep on the bed. Everything gets turned over. You're meant to sit on the floor. The Tana about Kapara. Kapara explains why. Why does the Avel turn over his bed? The most yukni nasate behen. This is HaKadosh Baruch Hu speaking. I inserted my form into the human being. Rashi says on the top line, B'tselem lakim asasa adam. And what happened now? U'ba'avoyna yisayim, due to their averis. Hafachtia. I had to overturn it from life to death. He no longer has that proper tzura, proper tselem lakim, and therefore kafu mitayisayin aleh. Overturn your beds. The Korban Eden Yerushalmi explains a bed is a facilitator, for tashmish, for zivuk, for life. Turn it over. Life has just come to an end. So you meant to do that and sit on the floor. Bizman Hazeh Taisus back in Tainus says we don't do that today because we're concerned the Goyim might view it as something superstitious. But even Bizman Hazeh Lo'ilenu and Avel will sit on the floor. So there's no Kfiyas HaMitos, but the concept of lack of comfort sitting on the floor still applies today. So an Avel certainly engages in this. What about a Menuda and a Mitzora? Menuda u Mitzora mahin b'kriyas hamita teku. What about working? Avel asur b'asiyas malacha, like we had back in the beginning of last parak. There's no malacha for an Avel. Tichsiv v'fachti chagechem la'avel. La'evel. I have overturned your holiday, your chag, to mourning. So we connect the two things. Chag to Evel, ma chag asur b'malacha, just like on Yom Tov, we refrain from malacha. Af Avel asur b'malacha, likewise an Avel doesn't engage in malacha. And halacha is brought down. The Ramah says if it's a davar aved, that's already questionable. We had a machlekes back in the beginning of second parak whether that's a heter for an Avel. So halacha is that the first 3 days we try to refrain from that. We have others do it for him. But in the case of hefsed meruba, In the case of where that's not feasible, we allow even the oval to do that. In the case of hefsed meruba, we allow it even in the first couple of days, in the first stage of avelus. So when it comes to davar avid, if it's the first 3 days you try to avoid, past that the oval can engage. Unless it's hefsed meruba, we allow even further than that. In any case, this is the concept. Oval sits idle, he mourns, he focuses on the loss, and that's a tremendous kavod. That's a show of respect for the departed fellow. What about a menuda? Mahu b'asiyas malach, Rabbi Yosef Tashma. K'sha'amru aso b'asiyas malach. This is back in Tanis. So they fasted, and when they got to a certain point, a certain severity in the fasting arrangement, they would stop malacha as well. We have it on Tisha B'Av as well. We don't do malacha during certain fast days. But you're meant to know that the Issa malacha is not all around. It's not for the full 24-hour period. Only during the day, which is the Ikar Zman of malacha. But at night, there's no Issa malacha. The Brisa continues. Right? So the Brisa there is discussing all kinds of restrictions and limitations that apply to a fast day. Issa malacha, no washing, no wearing shoes. And the Brisa throws in this line, which would seem to say that even a menuda and aval are meant to refrain from malacha. There you go. So menuda can't engage in work. He's meant to sit idle and contemplate his situation and do teshuvah. Should we not assume that this phrase, this comparison, this connection to menuda applies to all those activities, all those restrictions mentioned in the Brisa, including Isser Malach? Lo Ashara, perhaps it's going on the other things mentioned in the Brisa, but not on Isser Malach, which doesn't apply to an Av. Tashma, here's a clear right that a menuda can engage in work. The Brisa that we discussed in Amar Aleph. Menuda shoyne v'shoyne loy, niska v'niskar loy. He can hire himself out, and they can hire himself out for him. Shma mina, it's a raya that a menuda can engage in work. What about a mitzvah? Mahu b'asiyas malacha? Take it, we leave it as a question mark. What about bathing? Avel asa b'rachitzi may not do so. The pasuk we had earlier describing an isha who was in mourning. Vatosichi shaman, don't smear oil. Rachitza b'klal sicha, although we're discussing smearing oil, but bathing, rinsing is all related to sicha, and if one is not allowed, likewise the other. What about a menuda? Ma'u b'rachitza. Rabbi Yosef Tashma. K'sha'amru, this is that brisa that we started a minute ago. K'sha'amru asa b'rachitza, when we speak about the issa rachitza during the time of Tanis, of Tisha B'Av, etc. Lo yamru ela kol gufay, that only applies to a full body wash. Aval, but just a minor rinse, panav, yadav, raglav, mutter, his face, hands and feet, that's okay. The Brisa throws in another phrase, v'cheinatam ma'itze b'menuda v'aval. In fact, the Brisa adds that clause, that the same thing applies to menuda uba aval. Should we not assume ma'lav akulu, it's referring to all the activities mentioned in the Brisa, including is rachitza, which applies to a menuda. Loy ashara, it's going on the other items, but not on rachitza. So we leave that as a question mark. What about a mitzvah? Can he rinse? Can he bathe? Ma'u b'rachitza, take it, we leave it unresolved. So take it literally means let it stand. I had a Rebbe who said that take it means it's a Rashi Tevis Tishbi Aliyahu Tishbi Aliyahu Navi Yitaritz Kushis V'Abais. He'll respond, he'll resolve all these difficulties. What about wearing shoes? Avel asur b'nilas hasandal. Avel may not engage in nilas hasandal. Back to Yecheskel, Hashem tells him, you will not keep to the halachas of the avel. You will have your shoes on your feet. What does this imply? Michlal kuli alma asur. All other avelim are meant to wear shoes. So an avel is meant to sit on the floor, is meant to wallow in the dust, meant not to wear shoes. In fact, by the way, getting back to tefillin by an avel, the Rishonim, Rashi in several places explains why. Why indeed? Why can't an avel wear tefillin? He says because tefillin are described as pe'er, an adornment, something, an item of majesty. And an avel who is mizgoydel ba'afra, he's wallowing in the dirt and the dust, he's on the floor in a state of mourning, it's not appropriate that the tefillin rests on a person in that state. So here as well we learn that he can't wear shoes. What about a menuda? Mahu b'nilas hasandal. A fellow in cherem, can he wear shoes? Amar Yosef Tashma. We have a right from a brisa that he may not. That's that same brayse that we're discussing all along. When we say one may not wear shoes during the Tisha B'Av fast, that's only in town when he doesn't have to wear the shoes. But if he's on a trip, he's on the road, shoes are indispensable, you have to wear the shoes. So there's a special heter that he can wear shoes while he's traveling. How does he go about this? How does he do this? So he sets out on his journey. At that point, he puts on his shoes. When he leaves the city, he is noyel. Nichnas le'ir. When he returns back to town, he removes his shoes. So it's not a blanket heter. It's only as per need when he's actually on the road. The brayse continues. The same thing applies to a menuda and an oval. My love, akulish, we not assume this clause refers to all the halachas. Rinsing, shoes. The right from here that a menuda must go barefoot. Perhaps not ashara, it's going on the other items, but not on the sandal, which perhaps doesn't apply to the menuda. Taisus asks the kasha. We find that Rabbi Lezer in Bav Metzia, who was in a state of nidui, tore his clothing, took off his shoes. He says maybe he was being machmer, so it isn't necessarily a raya from there. Continues the Gemara. What about a mitzvah with regards to wearing shoes? Take it, we leave it unresolved. Continues the Gemara. Aval may not engage with his wife as married. David consoled. He was menachem Bathsheba, his wife, when their son died, and then after her, he lived with her as married. We have a raya from here. Apparently, during the time of Avelus, they have to keep separate. Menuda ma'u b'tash shamita. What about a menuda? Rav Yosef Tashma, bring a raya that it's permissible. Tashma kol oisan shana misho Yisrael b'midbar. We know that all throughout the years in the Midbar, Klal Yisrael were in a state of menudin hayu. This was after the Meraglim. They were menuda to Hashem. They were sort of in a state of excommunication. We know that. I learned this back in the end of Tanis, that during Tu B'Av, it was a day of Simcha. One of the reasons is because the Dibur returned to Moshe. And Rashi explains it was Nesyachid Moshe. It was a special renewed connection between Hashem and Moshe, which did not happen all throughout the years that the Yisrael were in the Midbar, and the Yisrael were Menudel Amakim, and only after they all died out, the Midbar ceased to exist. Hashem's chiba, Hashem's favor returned to Moshe Rabbeinu. So we see that Klal Yisrael were in a state of need, and still we know they had offspring. Many children were born in the Midbar. In fact, the entire Dor Midbar passed away, and only their children entered Eretz Yisrael. So although they were menudin hayu, b'shem shumitosem. Isn't this a raya that it's mutter? Amalei Abaye, listen to Abaye. He says no, there's no raya. You're being a raya from what type of nidui? A heavenly nidui. Maybe that's more lenient. V'duma menuda l'shmaim shani, that's different. The kill, it's more lenient. But a menuda from Bezdin is more severe. 1 second, kill? You mean to say that menuda l'shmaim is more kal? A minute ago you told me otherwise. Va'amras chamer. When it came to being a raya from the menuda l'shmaim regarding the halachas that we find there, atifas haroish, or not greeting, sheila shalom, Abai himself tells us, no, menuda l'shamayim, that's more severe. You can't bring a raya, you can't bring a bechumrah from there. And here he's saying the other way around. We find a kula, you tell me, no, menuda l'shamayim, that's no raya, because it's not as severe. So which way is it? Va'amras chamer. Previously you told me it's more chamer. Answers the Gemara, we're not sure. Sfukim mesapkali. Abaye was uncertain how to treat the nidui l'shamayim. On the one hand, it would appear that it's more severe from Hashem. On the other hand, we can say, well, Hashem's nidui doesn't need much reinforcement. We get the message. The Bezdin's nidui needs to be reinforced. We find several times throughout Gemara that Chacham made a chizuk l'divrei. They reinforced their words to give it bite, to give it teeth, to give it power. But something that's minat Torah doesn't necessarily need to be enforced. It's self-enforced. In any case, perhaps Nidul Hashamayim is not so severe. It doesn't need so many elements and so many components. And therefore, Zil Hachaka Matchile, when it comes to finding a Chumrah, we say, there's no raya from there. With Doicha, the Chumrah, maybe Nidul Hashamayim is more severe and contains more elements to it. Zil Hachaka Matchile, when it comes to finding a Kula, we can say the other way. With Doicha, we say, no, maybe Nidul Hashamayim is more kal, you can't prove from there. In any case, we have no raya. We have no conclusion regarding the nidu and tashmish shamita. What about a mitzvah? Ma'u b'tashmish shamita, tashma, he may not engage. The sanya of yoshav mechutz to is meant to remain outside his oil. Sheyeh kemenuda ka'aval. He has to conduct himself like a menuda and like a aval, meaning he has to keep separate, right? Stay out of town. Don't relate to others. And that gives him an opportunity to contemplate, to realize what he did wrong. Lashon hara, which distances people, and he himself has to experience that distance right now. The Brisa continues, V'asur b'tashmish shamita. How do we know that? Because mechutz la'ala is referring to his wife. Ve'ein alei le'ishtay. Shnema, we find by Matan Torah, after Matan Torah, it says, Leich emerlem, go tell Klal Yisrael, shuvu lechem la'leichem, go back to your tents, meaning back to tashmish shamita. Pretty clear from this brisa, Shema Mino, that a Matzur may not. Oibazoi says the Gemara of So v'nivshes is Benami Menuda. This brisa mentions Menuda as well in the same context. It would seem that a Menuda has the same halacha. So why aren't we sure regarding Menuda? Amar Rav Huna B'Rav Pinchas B'Rav Rav Yosef, the same terrace as we had in Amar Aleph. Let's take a close look at the lashon of the brisa. Mi'Iktani she'asur. Does the Brisa then say that a Mitzvah may not engage in Tashmish just like a Menuda Ka'aval? It doesn't say that. It says, Shehei K'Menuda Ka'aval. In some ways, in some aspects, a Mitzvah is comparable to a Menuda Ka'aval. But nice when it comes to other things. Keep his distance, no haircutting, etc. And he has an additional element. This is the Mitzvah. That is Asr and Tashmish. But perhaps a Menuda does not have that halacha. So the bottom line is, an Aval may not, a Metzora may not, a Menuda we're not sure. One final halach. When a person is in a state of Avelis, he may not send a korban to the Beis HaMikdash. Why? The Sanya, Rab Shimon Omer, we know that there's a korban called a Shalomim. We learn, Shalomim means wholesome, complete. A fellow who has all his faculties in order. He's in a state of joy and simcha. Bizman shu shalim. Then he can engage in hakravas karbanas, v'loy bizman shu oinen, as opposed to when he's in a state of aninas and mourning. So that's out. What about a menuda? Mahu she'shalech karbanos. Rav Yosef, I'll bring a raya that they may. Tashma kol oisam shanim. Shal Yisrael b'midbar. They were menudan hayu lamakim. V'shilchu karbanosem. They certainly engaged in hakravas karbanos. Rashi Ksaviyad says they brought to meet him every day. Abaye. So once again, Abaye responds with the same argument. Maybe a spiritual, a heavenly nidu is different. The kill, it's more lenient. You can't be a raya to an ordinary nidu. Asks the Gemara. The Gemara jumps right back. Kill? What do you mean it's more lenient? Just earlier you told me Menud L'Shamayim is more severe. Same teretz. It's a fuki mesapkele. We're unsure. Umatchle, and therefore we're pushed aside in both directions. We have no raya one way or the other. What about a mitzvah? Mahu she'shalech karbanos tashma desanya. We have a pasuk in Yechezkel. Va'achri tarasei. So the pasuk reads Va'achri tarasei shivas yomim yisbrulai. We learn from here that we're speaking about two types of tumah. Va'achri tarasei means he was engaged in tumas meis. Acha prishasim and ameis. When he totally separates from the meis, he has the hazov, the paraduma, and the pasuk continues Shivas yomim yisbrulai. What is that referring to? Another type of tumah. Elu zayin im esfira, the 7 days that he counts to do the as part of the tahara process of a mitzvah. And the next pasuk says, "Ubiyoyim boyala kodesh elachatza pnimis l'sharis ba'kodesh yakiv chatase." What is it referring to? Who's going to bring a chat? Who's going to bring a korban? Says Rabbi Yehuda. This is unconnected to the previous pasuk. This is referring to the asira seif zu asira seifa shaloi, the mincha, which is brought by a kohen gadol every day, or the kohen hedyot, the first time that he enters, the first time that he comes to do avodah. David Rabbi Yehuda. So that's Rabbi Yehuda's pshat in this pasuk. Rabbi Shimon Omer, I'll tell you pshat in the second pasuk. It's very much connected with the previous pasuk, as Tosfos explains the Gemara. Rabbi Shimon Omer b'voyay. It says b'yoyim boyel hakodesh. So we learn from here that it can only be makrov when he actually arrives. You can't do a long distance hakrovos, remote control hakrovos. When you're a mitzvah, you can't bring karbanis. B'voyay yakrov. Bizman she'roi l'bi roi l'akrova. When he's suitable, when he's roi to actually enter the Beis Hamikdash, when he's free of the tumas mitzvah, then he can bring a carbon. Bizman she'en roi l'bi. But if this fellow is not roi to come into the Beis Hamikdash, he's still a mitzvah. Ein roi l'akrova. He can't bring a carbon, and that's the conclusion. That's the raya that a mitzvah may not send in a carbon to the Beis Hamikdash. Okay, so let's review all the categories and all the halachas. We have the aval, the menuda, and the mitzvah. Let's go down the line. Regarding taspers, haircutting, all three must refrain for different reasons. The aval, in order to show kavod hameis. The menuda and the mitzvah, this is meant to give them a little einish, a little suffering, so that they see things the way it is and they do teshuvah. What about atifas harosh? That applies to an aval, applies to a mitzvah. Well, a menuda, we're not sure. We do have a mission regarding menuda al-shamayim, where they engage in atifas harosh. Regarding wearing tefillin, al-aval does not. Right? It's not appropriate for the aval who's misgaidel be'afroi. Regarding menuda mitzvah, we leave it in a question mark. She'ela shalom is asur by an aval. A mitzvah may not. A menuda al-shamayim, does not. Otherwise, we're not sure. Regarding learning Torah, an aval may not be mesamech himself with divrei Torah during a state of avelus, which will divert him from the event at hand. Regarding a menuda and mitzvah, the answer is yes, they may learn Torah. Tachboises, laundering, all three are asur. Kriya applies to an aval and a mitzvah. Menuda, we're not sure. Kfiya samita to an aval, but does not apply to the other ones. Actually, we have a question mark, we're not sure. Is a malacha, an aval may not do malacha. A menuda may, a mitzvah, we're not sure. Rechitza, bathing, an aval is asur. A menuda and mitzvah, question mark. Nilas hasandal applies to an aval. The other ones we're not sure. Tashin shamita is asur by an aval. A mitzvah as well. A menuda we're not sure. But we do have a right that menuda al-shamayim, such as Yisrael and Midbar, they were mutan tashin shamita. And finally we have the halacha meshalchan kavan eseyan. An aval may not, he's not shalim, he's not besimcha. A mitzvah as well may not. Regarding a menuda, we're not sure, but we have a right that menuda al-shamayim, such as in the Midbar, they certainly would send their karbanos to the Beis Hamikdash. Should be zeicha to experience only simchas throughout our lifetime. Amen v'amen. Be well.